Our guest for today is Ms. Rujuta Mody. She is the partner at Connect 4 Design Studio, an architectural and interior designing firm in Mumbai. Rujuta has over 20 years of experience in the architectural industry and has worked both in India and USA, focusing on developer-led architectural projects in residential, commercial, and institutional sectors. To broaden the firm's outlook towards business and strategy, Rujuta has also studied management at a top university in India. She also periodically teaches at architectural institutes across the city. We are proud and honored to have Rujuta on IndexTap Ghar Ki Baat today. Hello Rujuta, thank you so much for being here on IndexTap Ghar Ki Baat.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm excited to be here and have a discussion with you.
Even we are very excited to have an architect's viewpoint, especially for our home buyers. Rujuta, before we start with the questions, could you just take us through your journey in this industry? How did you start?
Sure. So, Cheryl, I actually started, thinking about architecture quite early on in my life, and I went to a school here in Bombay called Kamala. And after that, I went to the US for my master's, and I worked in a firm in Washington DC that was doing residential buildings. And I was really fascinated by how we were, they were treating residences and the kinds of things that we were thinking about at that time. When I came back to India, it seemed like a natural progression to continue in housing. And I have a lot of interest in housing, especially the non-luxury segment, so the affordable, the mid-segment housing. I've done a lot of research also into what home buyers are looking for, what kinds of things drive people to buy in, say, northern suburbs like Bandar or Borivali, or even somewhere in Thane. So our firm constantly does a lot of research-based architecture. So it's not just about fitting what the builder wants, but also trying to figure out what a home buyer wants.
That must have been an incredible journey, I'm sure. So we've jotted down a few questions for our home buyers, and we'd love to have an architect's viewpoint on those. So firstly, as an architect, what would you suggest the top 3 things a home buyer should definitely consider, before buying his dream home?
So the top 3 things, I think the first thing would be to check the pedigree of if you're buying a new apartment or under construction apartment or a new building, then the first thing is to check the pedigree of the builder and make sure that they have delivered on time, make sure that they have delivered a quality product. So that's number 1. Number 2 would of course be the layout of your apartment. You have to be fully convinced that this is your home. I mean, it should meet all your requirements in terms of number of bedrooms, how the rooms are oriented. So that is number 2. And number 3 would be locality. I think locality now in a city like Bombay, you don't have a lot of choice. But so that's why that's number 3 for me, because you have to at least ensure that you have access to, common utilities like groceries, maybe a dispensary, schools should be close by. So that should be your, and of course travel. How would you travel to your workplace? Is there mass transport available or not? So that's something that you have to look at. So these are the top 3.
So you also mentioned about that the home buyer needs to definitely look at a site layout.
Yes.
So what are the things in a site layout that a home buyer should definitely have a look at? That these are the things that I have to make sure that are there in the site layout and site planning.
So I think what is important in site planning is to understand, and it's difficult for home buyers to do this, but you have to understand where is your building, where is the next building, how much space is there between them. Sometimes when you're buying, without actually seeing the apartment, you're buying off drawings, basically it becomes a little difficult, but it's very important to understand that do I have a clear view out, or do I have, a building, say, 50 feet ahead or 40 feet ahead. So that's one thing that I would, and you could, imagine that you're standing in the window of the room that you are and draw a straight line. If you see something straight ahead of you, that could be a no-no. Secondly, make sure that there are enough open spaces. There's a clearly defined entry and exit point. There are clearly defined parking spaces, and of course amenities. Now all developers give like a dime a dozen, but see if they're actually just being placed in the drawing to fill a space, or they have a meaningful area that they'll be used. That's for the cycling purpose.
So when you said that you stand at the window and draw a line, and if you have an obstacle, considering in a city like Mumbai where there are so many constructions happening and you have buildings coming everywhere across a locality, so in those cases when you draw a line you already have a building in front, what do you do in that case?
You should think about how close that building is. So our Mumbai regulations allow you to place another building at about 20 meters, from your building, which is okay, not great, but that's okay. So at least it needs to be that. But now suppose the plan is such that another wing of your same building is kind of overlapping your bedroom, then that should be a no-no, which is maybe within 20 feet of where you are. 20 meters is about 60 or 70 feet. So that's fine.
And how does direction impact the ambience of the house?
So direction plays a very important role. Based on how your apartment is oriented, the sunlight coming into your house will differ. So, for example, a north-facing apartment will never get direct sunlight. It will only get ambient light. Now, this would be okay for very hot and dry climates, but maybe not so good for humid tropical climates like Mumbai. Another thing is that do you have any west-facing windows or any cross ventilation that is happening through the west? Because most of the times across our subcontinent we get a southwesterly breeze, so that's important to gauge. If you have a lot of south and west openings, you will have a lot of heat gain. So that's another thing that you should think about when you are buying your apartment. So ideally, you should have a north and a west kind of orientation. That would be the best. And of course, scope for cross ventilation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what do you think about apartment planning and storage, and what are we supposed to check in that?
So in most big metro cities, we have a lot of deficit of space, right? Like most people are looking for more space. Like every 2 square feet that they can get, they can. I think you can look in the planning of the apartments for a few things. One is that look at the corridor. How wide is the corridor? Are you going to be able to put in a storage unit there? Secondly, if you can get an apartment which has a small storeroom, nothing like it, that will become a space that can be used for all kinds of things. In the bedrooms, evaluate when you walk into that bedroom, where will you put the wardrobe? Will it come in the way of the bathroom, or will it come in the way of the opening of the door or of the bedroom? You should at least get about 6 feet of wardrobe, 6 running feet of wardrobe, so for it to be comfortable in each room. So you should look for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so from a viewpoint of customization, how is the approach different for an under construction property versus a pre-owned one?
So there's a big difference here because in an under construction property, you may be able to have a lot of say in how your apartment comes together. So you may be able to say that I don't want any of these walls. You may be able to say I don't like the bathroom tiles that you're giving. So don't give them to me. I will change them out. You may be able to not take the flooring. So you can basically get a bare shell apartment if you want when it's under construction. When you're buying a pre-owned apartment, you have to take what you get, and then you may spend more time, effort, money in removing and then putting in what you want. So that can make a big difference.
So that is kind of a task while
Yes.
when you go for pre-owned property.
Yes, there is a task, yeah. And I mean, most people hire architects and interior designers now or even the mistries. So it becomes a task. First, you're demolishing. You're spending so much time demolishing, and then you have to rebuild it again.
So you
Yeah.
prefer doing interiors and redevelopments and revamping the apartments mostly for under construction properties?
I think it'll be a lot easier, yes. Yeah.
And considering washroom layout, why is checking a washroom layout important, and what are we supposed to examine in that?
So a washroom is really important. There are two things that I think one should be looking for. One is that there's adequate ventilation. Open that window in the washroom and see, is it like in a small duct, internal duct? Is it open to the outside? Because the exhaust and the smells that would be associated with the bathroom could be mitigated if it is a well ventilated bathroom. The second thing to look for is if there's a segregated wet and dry zone. So, in the bathroom we have three functions, mainly the wash basin, the WC and the shower. Now, if the shower or the tap is not, if your WC is at the end and the shower is in the middle, that means that when you take a shower, the whole bathroom is going to get wet, right? So, you need to have it in such a way that, the best layout would be wash basin, then WC, and then the shower. And the shower has a defined ledge so that no water comes out into the space. So that's the wet area. Then you step into what is the dry area. And then when you don't want to have a shower, or when you're going in just for the other two functions, you don't have to get your feet wet.
What about having a shower cubicle? Does that come along, or you have to kind of get it done from an architect?
A lot of developers are now offering shower cubicles. They're offering semi-enclosed showers. So that's something really that's a plus. Shower cubicles sometimes can get a little cramped, just from the size, because various people are used to taking baths in various ways. So if you're used to taking a bucket bath, then a shower cubicle will get cramped. But having a shower enclosure and having a little bit of a ledge is very important, I think.
Sure. And what would be your thoughts on other services like firefighting and AC type, ducting, cleaning and maintenance? How important are these things?
Extremely important. So when I would say that they are the bones of the building. What you see with the facade or like your tiling and all is just aesthetic. If the bones of the building don't work, then you're in for a really bad time there. If you're looking at a high-rise building, definitely make sure that there is a firefighting system in place. We've heard enough stories of buildings having fires at the 20th floor and you're not being able to reach. Mostly the fire engine is not going to reach you. Your internal building's system is what is going to save you till the fire engine reaches. So you have to make sure, is there a working sprinkler? Is there a sprinkler in every room? I'm talking, this is only about high-rise buildings. Every single room by law has to have a sprinkler in it. So check that. Check if there's a fire hydrant on your floor. Check if there is a hose reel, which is like a big hose where if you have a fire, you open that and you turn the knob and you have water coming in at high pressure. So check that. So that's one thing. So that's firefighting. Secondly, make sure that if it is a tall building, what are the waste disposal systems? Is somebody going to come and collect trash every day, or do you have a trash chute? If there's a trash chute, what happens below? Where does it go? It shouldn't be like coming out in your staircase.
So in the trash chute, there is no bifurcation, or is there a bifurcation of wet and dry?
It's not there right now, and that's what makes it really, really unpleasant. In fact, trash chutes are kind of a no-no in our culture because people don't know how to bag their trash, so that becomes like a whole chute of smell. So you don't want to have that at all. Then I think other services, air conditioning. Figure out where you can place your outdoor units. Certain apartments have dedicated ledges for outdoor units. Also look to see if there are holes drilled into the beams to allow the AC pipe, the refrigerant and the wastewater to flow out efficiently, so that you don't end up spending a lot of effort trying to make those routings from your indoor unit to your outdoor unit.
And for the elderly, what do you think a home buyer should keep in mind while buying a home, especially for senior citizens and for the elder members of the family?
So this I think would come under the ambit of like inclusive housing for disabled, housing for seniors. All of that should be we should be looking at having an inclusive kind of environment for housing. Another thing that I would say that you should look for the elderly is areas where they can have quiet recreation. So look to see if the apartment building has covered pergola areas, covered porches where the elderly can sit in the evening. Look for walking tracks and things like that they could use. So that could be a thing, and also inside the apartments, of course, the bathroom should be accessible. And then a lot of that could be done in the interiors as well. How you put in the correct grab bars and put in the correct kind of systems for them.
Sure. Lastly, we would want to know what is the number of apartment per floor versus number of lifts per lobby ratio?
So this actually really depends on how tall you're going. But typically for a 6 flat configuration, maybe going for a 20-25 story tower, you should have a minimum of 3 elevators and one more service elevator. So that's what would, and the elevator should be about 10 to 14 people elevators at least. So 3 minimum is required that you should have. For a lower, for an apartment building which is going up to maybe just 10 or 12 floors, there you could get away with 2. But 2 is minimum. 2 is by law, 2 is mandated. You can't do less than 2.
Absolutely. I guess we've got all our questions answered, and I'm sure our home buyers would definitely utilize these information while buying his dream home. Thank you so much.
I'm glad I could answer you. Thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you.